It was the end of their final year at university, and 5 friends decided to celebrate by embarking on an adventure they would never forget. Emily, Jake, Sarah, Mike, and Laura had always shared a love for the outdoors, and they decided to climb Mount Silvanus, a remote mountain known for its breathtaking views and challenging trails. However, it was also infamous for its dark history and eerie legend, which the friends dismissed as mere superstition. They planned their trip meticulously, gathering all the necessary gear and supplies. Despite hearing warnings from the locals about the mountain's haunted reputation, they were determined to go. They wanted an adventure, and the stories only added an element of excitement to their journey. Group set out early in the morning, filled with excitement and anticipation. The weather was perfect, clear skies and a gentle breeze. The first part of the hike was uneventful, and they enjoyed the stunning scenery and the sense of freedom that came with being in nature. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the atmosphere began to change. Trees grew denser, and the path became less distinct. The air grew cooler, and an uneasy silence settled over the forest. Friends tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, attributing it to their overactive imaginations. As they climbed higher, strange things started to happen. Emily was the first to notice when she saw a shadowy figure moving among the trees. She dismissed it as a trick of the light, couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Mike, the group's skeptic, laughed off her concerns and urged everyone to keep moving. That night, they set up camp in a small clearing. As they sat around the campfire, they heard faint whispers carried by the wind. The sound was eerie and unsettling, but they convinced themselves it was just the wind rustling through the trees. However, the whispers grew louder and more distinct, as if voices were surrounding them. Sarah, feeling brave, suggested they explore the source of the whispers. They ventured a short distance from the camp, only to find an ancient, weathered stone with strange markings. The air around the stone felt thick and oppressive, and they decided to return to the campfire. As they settled into their tents, the atmosphere grew even more tense. The forest seemed to come alive with strange noises, branches snapping, distant footsteps, and an occasional faint scream. Sleep eluded them, and they spent the night in a state of heightened alertness. In the early hours of the morning, Jake heard a soft, mournful singing coming from outside his tent. He peeked out and, to his horror, saw a ghostly figure of a woman in white standing at the edge of the clearing. Her eyes were empty, and her face was twisted in sorrow. He blinked, and she vanished. Jake didn't sleep for the rest of the night, and as soon as dawn broke, he told the others about what he had seen. They decided to pack up and continue their ascent, hoping to reach the summit quickly and descend before anything worse happened. Climb to the summit was grueling, and the strange occurrences only intensified. They heard voices calling their names, saw fleeting shadows in the corner of their eyes, and felt an oppressive presence watching them. Despite their fear, they pressed on, driven by a mix of determination and desperation. When they finally reached the summit, they were met with a stunning view that took their breath away. For a moment, the beauty of the landscape made them forget the horrors they had experienced. However, their relief was short-lived. As they rested, the temperature dropped suddenly, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring their view. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent, and they felt a malevolent presence surrounding them. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and they heard a low, guttural growl. Panicking, they decided to descend immediately. The fog made it difficult to see, and the trail seemed to change, leading them in circles. The whispers turned into screams, and they saw ghostly apparitions blocking their path. In their haste to escape, they became separated. Emily and Jake found themselves together, while Sarah, Mike, and Laura were lost in the fog. The sense of dread grew stronger, and they realized that they were not alone. Emily and Jake stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. Desperate for shelter, they entered, only to find the walls covered in strange symbols and old decaying bones scattered on the floor. The air was thick with the stench of death, and they knew they had made a terrible mistake. Inside the cabin, Emily and Jake were confronted by the spirits of those who had died on the mountain. The ghostly woman appeared again, her eyes filled with sorrow and anger. She revealed that she had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft and had been executed on the mountain centuries ago. Her spirit, along with the spirits of others who had met tragic ends, haunted the mountain, seeking revenge on anyone who dared to trespass. Emily, trembling with fear, asked how they could escape. The ghostly woman told them that the only way to break the curse was to find and destroy the object that bound her spirit to the mountain, locket hidden deep within the forest. Emily and Jake, driven by a desperate need to survive, left the cabin and began their search for the locket. The forest seemed to twist and turn, leading them deeper into its dark heart. The spirits continued to haunt them, but they pressed on, knowing it was their only chance. Meanwhile, Sarah, Mike, and Laura faced their own horrors. They encountered the spirits of other victims, each with their own tragic stories. The spirits tormented them, whispering of their fates and urging them to join them in death. As the night wore on, the friends' hope began to wane. The forest seemed endless, and the spirits grew more aggressive. Just as they were about to give up, Emily spotted a glimmer of light through the trees. She and Jake followed it, and to their relief, found an old, overgrown graveyard. In the center of the graveyard stood a decrepit mausoleum. The door was ajar, and inside they found a stone altar with the locket resting on it. The air was thick with a sense of malevolence, and they knew they were in the right place. With trembling hands, Emily took the locket and smashed it against the altar. A blinding light filled the mausoleum, and the spirits' anguished cries echoed through the forest. The ground shook violently, and for a moment they feared they would be buried alive. As the light faded, the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The spirits vanished, and the forest grew silent. Emily and Jake hurried out of the mausoleum and found Sarah, Mike, and Laura waiting outside. The fog had cleared, and the trail was visible once more. Exhausted and traumatized, they made their way down the mountain. The descent was eerily calm, and they reached the base without further incident. They vowed never to speak of their experience, fearing no one would believe them.